Welcome to the Word of Mouth Podcast, a series of honest, inspiring conversations with creatives from all walks of life, some in our industry, others far outside it. What connects them all? Passion, persistence, and the courage to keep creating. So listen in and get inspired. Look up our guest, and if you find yourself nodding along, feeling seen, or more hopeful, hit subscribe. Join our journey, and let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep spreading these stories the way they were meant to be shared, by word of mouth. Welcome to another episode of the Word of Mouth Podcast presented by Johnny Davis Digital Solutions. Today we are joined in our studio with a really cool guest, and I was so excited when Johnny told me that you agreed to join us. Ray Langhammer, you are a lifestyle designer, originally from California, and now you're a transplant here in High Point. So if you could introduce yourself a little bit to our audience, talk to us a little bit about where you come from, what you've done, and then sort of bring us into the world that you're in now here in High Point.
Oh my goodness, how much time do we have?
As long as you need.
I originally I was actually from Missouri, but I moved to California when I was 24. But I had grown up with an amazing family. I'm an only child, but my grandmother and my grandfather, my paternal grandparents, lived with us. And my grandmother was in a wheelchair, and so we would just literally redecorate the house. I mean, and you couldn't do this anymore because she was in a wheelchair. I was moving furniture for her when I was 4 years old and picking out wallpaper. And so we, it just was kind of a natural thing. But when I was 8 years old, I had an epiphany that I wanted to live in California. And so I told my parents, I said, I have an announcement to make. So my grandparents and my parents put their food forks down, and I said, when I'm old enough, I'm going to move to California, be an interior designer, live at the beach, drive a white BMW convertible, and have 4 other houses in different regions so I can do different house styles for different clients, because most clients have more than one house, or most families had more than one house. So I wanted to know how to decorate other houses for them, not just the house that they live in permanently.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, I might have been a little precocious as a young man, but and I was always doing art and drawing and doing creative things. But my grandfather was in construction, and he said, Ray, he's like, I know you're really good at art and you really, enjoy it. He's like, but I think you need to have a practical skill. So I think you should go to architecture school. Okay. So I took a couple of architecture courses in high school, and then I ended up going to Kansas State University and getting a degree in architecture there.
Okay.
So got out of school and worked for Ralph Lauren and their store in St. Louis, where I was from, and they closed the store. And they said, we'll move you anywhere you want to live if you work for Ralph Lauren. So I said, I want to live in California. So they moved me to California when I was 24 years old.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was. And then that started my kind of world. And so I moved there in January of 1994. And I met Barclay Butera in July of 1994. And we opened our first brick and mortar retail design shop in December of 1994.
And that was with Barclay?
Yes.
Wow.
Barclay actually drove a white BMW convertible when I met him.
That is so, the synchronicity, that is serendipity and then some.
Yeah.
So you got there.
Yeah.
You were on the beach in California, working with a guy who had a white BMW convertible. Yep. You're just checking off your childhood wish list.
Yes. I also had names for these different lifestyles. And it was beach, city, mountain, town and country, and desert. Okay. So I told that to Barclay, and within 2 years, we started flipping houses, and we had a house at the beach, one in the mountains in Utah, one in the desert in Palm Springs, one in Beverly Hills, and our Newport Beach house.
That is amazing.
Yep. It ended up becoming our lifestyle brands. So we started designing products, and we ended up having 5 brick and mortars, and we were designing lines for 8 different lines of rugs, wallpaper, lighting.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're all named Beach, City, Mountain, Town, and Country, Desert.
Yep. I'm actually familiar with the Park City lines and some of the other lines that Barclay still currently has. And you're right, they all fit. They fit within a geographical target.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. My parents came to visit. I think I moved in 1994. I think they came in 1998, and they're like, wow, you have 5 houses. You are living in California. You have a white bean. They're like, you've manifested your life.
And you were in your 20s at this
20s.
point.
I was 24. Yeah, I was 20. Yeah, I moved there when I was 24 years old.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
So from 24, you've got everything set up. Like, where does the world take you, in your mid-20s? Like, how does that evolve into, where you are now?
Gosh, I met some incredible people, amazing clients. I did houses all over the country. For a while, I was in Hawaii for like 2 years doing projects.
That's cool.
Ended up doing houses in Connecticut. We had a showroom in New York. And I was traveling for work all the time. I mean, I think I was on a plane 3 weeks out of four. And we would travel to, Europe. We'd go to Paris and buy antiques. We'd go to Italy and buy fabrics.
Wow.
I mean, it was really a dream life.
Oh,
And
I'm sure.
it was like, and I kept thinking, I'm just a kid from Missouri. Like,
Yeah.
how am I in this life, you
Yeah.
know? So,
You and Walt Disney.
right, exactly.
So on your website, and when I was doing some research, kind of prepare for this podcast, you list yourself as a lifestyle designer. And you're the first lifestyle designer we've had on here, but I know there's a lot of similarities between an interior designer or an interior space planner and a lifestyle designer. Where does that separation occur? Like, what does a lifestyle designer do that maybe an interior designer doesn't do, or vice versa?
Well, from my experience, I mean, I do so many things for my clients. I become really part of their life, and I think whether they like it or not, But I end up, a lot of times I'll redo a client's wardrobe and their
Okay.
closet because always been interested in clothing. One of the things as a young boy too, I was either going to be an interior designer, a flight attendant, or a fashion designer, and I
Okay.
was voted most likely to become a fashion designer in my high school. So I was always interested in clothing, which I think goes hand in hand with interior and design and all that. So I would, redo clients' closets for them. I would come over to their house before events and help them, set their tables for events, flower arrangements, that kind of thing. And that would lead to me doing their other family members' homes and things like that. So I guess that's where the lifestyle comes in.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people are so busy building the life for themselves, but they don't necessarily know what exactly they want, on the day to day, because they're so in the minutia of how to run a family and building a family. So I kind of help them pick out things they normally wouldn't,
I am
think about.
firmly in that world.
Yeah.
I am firmly. I would stand a lot to gain to have someone like that come in and say, this might be what you're wearing, but it's probably not what you should be.
Right. And I would have clients call me and say, oh my gosh, Ray, it's my wife's, it's our anniversary. What should I get? Okay, well, let's go to Hermes. I know she wants this China, and buy a set of China. So it was really, I really like that part of it. I like people a lot, and I really like being really personal with people.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the lifestyle thing came in. And I really enjoyed it.
So when we're talking about, you had mentioned the overlap between fashion design, and I'm sure handbags and purses, accessories, interior design, colors, furnitures, textures. What inspires you? Like, would you walk into a home and you say, "This is how I envision this," or do you get to know the people and you say, "This is where they're going to spend the most joy in their life"? You're a very joy-centered designer. I've noticed in all of your work, you use a lot of color, use a lot of floral statements, in your design. So how does one world, be it fashion or, home, shape your other?
I think you said it best. I mean, joy and fun are part of like the name of the game for me.
Okay.
And when I meet people, I do have a really incredible sense of intuition.
Okay.
When I meet someone and I kind of look at how they interact, and I always look at, I design a lot of closets for wives because they have a lot of bags, as you said, and a lot of clothes. So, and I pick things out from what they are wearing a lot of times,
Okay.
and what they like, which I think totally expands into the home.
Okay.
And really, I think color is part of a major thing that I would say is my kind of skill set is to blend color,
Okay.
and bring a lot of texture and color into a home. I could also do monochromatic. And that was one of the things I really wanted to do as a young man. As I always thought, some designers do a style,
Right.
and I wanted to be able to do everything,
Yes.
because I get bored,
Yes.
and so I like to just see what and kind of push myself too.
That's cool. So when you talk about like the monochromatic, you're pushing yourself into a box and then trying to be creative within that box.
Correct.
So tell us how that affects your, I guess let's start with, what is your design philosophy? Like, it sounds like it's color, it's joy, it's a feeling.
I always tell people, I'm like, this is a fun process, because the last thing you want to do is make someone have to work harder
Right.
when they're trying to live their life and have a career. The last thing I want a husband to do is come home and think he has to work harder. So I just try to make it fun, and I think that I really enjoy bringing a smile to people's faces and kind of pushing them outside of their box, and saying, hey, let's try this. The two things you don't say to a husband is throw pillows and wallpaper. So you will get completely shut down. So I always say, listen, live with it for 48 hours. And if you hate it, I will take it back. Okay. If you hate this wall covering, I like to call it wall covering. So wallpaper sends them right to their younger years when they were a kid and their mom put some hideous wallpaper in their room.
Absolutely.
And they have PTSD. So I would say wall covering. I said, I will personally take it down myself and put whatever you want up, which gives them a total out. And
I'm sure.
And 9 times out of 10, they end up liking it.
I was going to say it takes that gamble. That's there's so many aspects of our lives. I think that we get into a period of comfort and we say, well, I know what this is and I don't want to do anything else. I don't, like wall coverings or, certain paint colors, even certain things that we wear. I'm resistant to that change myself. But I think it does help having someone that you see of as an asset. You're taking work off of them. You're not creating work for them. You're coming in and saying, how can I simplify your life while still beautifying it? And I think that you had mentioned earlier that you're very intuitive. Do you feel like you are able to read those people, the husbands and the wives and the family, and kind of say, okay, this is sort of where I place you in this world. This is where you're going to thrive?
Yeah, I also think I think Barclay coined this phrase at one time, Barclay Butera, we're therapists for the home. I mean, really, you're not an interior designer. You're really like a marriage and family counselor at that point. And you're really just trying to navigate everyone liking this. And because the last thing I want to do is have someone arguing over interior design or wall coverings or whatever. That's not the point of it, And also, I think if you take the permanence away from people, like, this isn't permanent. You're not stuck with it forever.
Right.
This can be changed. It's not a big deal. And I always say there's nothing like a fresh coat of paint to change someone's perspective.
That's very true.
So, I think that is also helpful in the psychology of design and lifestyle design, is that you're not stuck with this.
So can you walk us through, like, as we're talking about this, is there a project that's kind of standing out in your head where, like, this kind of came through, or something that, you've done in your past where you think, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about?
Well, that's a great question. I've done so many projects. There is a project that I did in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and it was a 12,000 square foot log home for a couple. And, it was one of those projects that there was never a budget discussed, and so there was never one really put down. But it was such an amazing home. It was built in the 80s, and they bought it in 2018.
Okay.
And it was finished by 2019. But it was such a big home that we added a movie theater, an extra kitchen, an elevator. It was 3 stories. And at the day they signed the escrow papers, they found out they had a, what do they call it? A doomsday thing on your property.
Oh, like a bunker, like a bunker. Prepper. Yeah.
They found out they have a bunker for 100 people on the property. And you would drive down this little narrow gravel road and there'd be like an outhouse, and you'd open the door and there's this huge hole that you'd open and you'd go down in it, and there was just like a whole nother house.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
It was amazing. And it had water and food and the whole thing. It was just amazing.
They didn't even know it was there.
They didn't know it was there. And they disclosed it the last day of signing the paper. I don't know how you do that. Maybe in Colorado, there's a different set of rules.
Colorado
but you couldn't pull that stuff in California for sure. So,
No, I could not imagine buying a home in California and learning you had a World War II bunker, in your backyard.
Yeah.
So when you're approaching this project, for instance, it's a log home. So this is where your mountain view idea comes in.
Right.
So when you get to the home, what do you do first? Do you just be in the home and kind of see what's speaking to you, or do you go in with sort of a set of mood boards or something and kind of say, okay, this is sort of what I want to do here? Or do you allow the experience to shape your approach to it?
Luckily, in this case, I had a log home of my own.
Okay.
And the client had seen it in one of our coffee table books, and she really liked it. And she was a big lover of Ralph Lauren, and she is amazing. She collects Louis Vuitton trunks, so we used Louis Vuitton trunks as like coffee tables and end tables. And it was one of those projects that you get in your lifetime that you're just like, how did I luck out? I'm so blessed to have this project and this client. And she really was into it, and so was her husband. So we found artists who did this incredible art, and it was war horses, Indian war horses, and he would paint these horses and photograph them. And he actually came to the property and hung them for us. We bought probably 20. And she met another artist at one of the Colorado hotels that she stayed at, and he actually bought some art from him, and he came and hung it. So we had all these great, and we found local potters to make pottery, and so it was really kind of a really fun project in the fact that we had a lot of artisans that were involved, and I had custom rugs made because the house was so big. I needed like 20 by 14 rugs.
Oh my goodness.
So, and we used a lot of Indian patterns and things like that for it.
Okay.
So there's lots of great textures, lots of great lighting, and it was a grand house.
Yeah.
So scale was really amazing. It was on
Yes.
400 acres, and it was just
Oh
one of
my
those
gosh.
projects that you just couldn't wait to get to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So how did the when you're collaborating with local artisans, what does that look like? You know, where are we finding our collaborators, you know, for you? Or are they approaching you and saying, you know, this is what I have to offer?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Ken. We like to shop a little bit, this client and I. So we would
Okay.
go downtown and we would be like, oh my God, I love this. And we'd be buying things. And they're like, do you want to meet the artist? Do you want to meet the artisan? So luckily we got to meet them when we'd say, hey, we need this. We love this, but we need it bigger, you know, so we could commission some things like that. And I'm not a really quiet person, as you might have noticed. So I talk really loud. So people hear me talking, and then they come out and I end up, you know, my friend always says, she's like, Ray, she's like, if we go into this store, can we not talk to every single person in the store? And I'm like, well, I never do that. She's like, you do it all the time, you know? And so I ended up meeting a lot of people that way. And so it's really fun. And I just enjoy meeting new people.
Yes.
You know, as an only child, I didn't have brothers and sisters, so I was always talking to random strangers. It really benefited me in my lifetime.
So does that affect the way, do you still collaborate the same way? You know, like when you approach a project now, like you're still, you know, kind of, you know, looking out and, you know, finding the inspiration, finding the collaboration outside of maybe like the expected avenues?
Yeah, you know, my friend always says, he's like, Ray, if a client asks you for a powder bath redesign, don't do a full-on rooftop deck. But I always see the potential of a job. So it always becomes bigger than the initial project was going to be. I don't know. I think I approach every client differently and every project differently, depending on the architecture, the location of the house, the amount of time the client wants to be around, you know, have me there, and ultimately, you know, what's the end goal, you know, and I can tell them, you know, this is what I'm thinking. I think one of your questions was too, like, are you something not organized, but like you're intuitive? And I'm like, I'm definitely intuitive, not like, I don't go into it like this is a set rule that I do or a set system. It's kind of like just emotional.
Okay.
You know?
So I did want to ask, are there certain motifs or rituals that you find yourself going back to, things that you've done before that you know, kind of become part of the Ray Langhammer experience?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I will say this, having 25 homes in 12 years, I can tell you with most certainty that I've done it myself.
Yes.
And that's how I can sell it to people.
Okay.
And even as a small child, like I was always going to my parents going, hey, I think I need a remodel of my room. What's my budget? Because I always wanted to try different color palettes or, you know, wallpaper or, you know, different flooring things. So my parents would allow that. And literally when my parents would go to dinner, the minute the car left, I would start rearranging the house.
Oh, that is too funny.
And when they came home and I heard the garage door open, I would shove whatever I didn't get done into a closet.
So funny.
They would come in and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I love having our bedroom in the living room. That's such a great idea. You know, and I have to give my parents credit where credit's due. They never said, that's hideous, change it back.
That is so incredibly supportive. And it's so important, you know, for a creative, especially as a child, you know, they could have sent you in one of two completely different directions, where you see the world as like an open canvas or you see the world as a closed door, you know, and it's very cool to hear that, you know, in, you know, Missouri, you know, growing up, that they saw innate talent in you. They saw like the ability to express yourself, and they encouraged that instead of, you know, either accidentally or on purpose. You know, everyone in the studio knows this, but I'm left-handed, and my parents fought me my entire childhood. And to this day, my mom will actually say that one of her deepest regrets is that she was never able to convince me to be right-handed.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Left-handed. I always want to be left-handed. I try to do things left-handed. I'm like, that looks crazy, you know? But Yeah, and I don't even think that's possible for me to even use that hand. But it's like you can't change that. You're
No,
born that way, right?
absolutely not. Yeah, but not for lack of trying on their part. You know, the mantra growing up was it's a right-handed person's world, and you're going to die using things intended for
Ken,
right-handed
I'm
people.
so sorry. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can tell you with most certainty that I was an only child, and I'm sure if I had other brothers and sisters, that would not have gone over well.
That's probably true.
But I think that they thought we got one. Let's help him out.
That
and
is very
I think
true.
I was so precocious they were probably scared of me
That's
because I was
fine.
doing it no matter what.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no stopping it.
Yeah, for sure. And like when we had relatives come over, I'd pack my bag and I'd be like, I'm going home with you. And they'd be like, why? I'm like, because I'm sick of my parents' house. I've redone it so many times. I'm going to redo your house.
Oh my gosh.
And no one ever said no to me.
That is
that
incredible.
I can remember, unless I probably threw a fit and threw my bag across the lobby. I don't know.
I cannot imagine, I have a 10-year-old. I cannot imagine him saying, I'm going to stay with these people so I can redesign their house. Like, no.
You can see why that might have been a little, like they might have been a little frightened to say no if I was that determined.
The audacity of a child saying, like, you've tried to do this, but you didn't do it well yourself. Let me go ahead and fix this for you.
Yeah. Well, and the other side of that, too, is that none of my family members ever said, no, Ray, you're not coming,
Right.
And so there was support all around
An entire community.
So that really helped,
Yes.
and I think that's made me a very confident designer.
So I like that because that kind of segues perfectly. So let's talk about your transition from California and then finding a community in High Point, North Carolina. What caused the geographical relocation? Is there something that High Point, we promote High Point a ton on this podcast, and, we see High Point as sort of ushering a creative revolution, right now, with everything that Jane Dagmy and HPXD is doing, and kind of the entire community is centered around the idea that we're going to become like a design mecca in the next 10, 15 years. So when you're transplanting from the West Coast and everything that you've done out there, you still have homes, you're still traveling, you're still seeing the East Coast. None of this is foreign to you. So what made the decision to make High Point your new home?
Jane Dagmy, of course.
Really?
I love her. No, I had been coming, I do love her, but the reason why I wanted to live here is because I had been traveling here for 30 years for market.
Okay.
And I would come early, like a month or so early, to set up all of our showrooms. And so I really felt at home here.
Okay.
People were very, homey. I have probably every person from most of the restaurants on here, I have their personal phone number to call if I need a reservation, because I would literally fly in and go straight to Blue Water Grill.
Yeah.
And then people would be like, hey, call me. Here's my number. If you need to get in, call me. I can see if I can get you guys in. So I'd call at last minute and say, I got 7 people. We didn't make a reservation. They're like, come right now, but you have to be out of here by 9 o'clock. There was a lady at Walgreens that used to bake me cookies when I'd come to town.
That's incredible.
So I just felt at home here.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I would highly, and I've actually flown people out to North Carolina to visit me just so they could see people who lived in LA who were just kind of fed up and like kind of losing it over how crowded and,
Yes.
expensive it is. And I'm like,
Yes.
you'll be amazed at how much serenity you could have in High Point, North Carolina, and also have fun and also see some of the most amazing designs.
Yes.
I just went to the Cohab the other day. I didn't know it existed, and I thought it was the most amazing thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. John
Yeah.
Muldoon has curated such a beautiful experience out there. It's not really a showroom. It's a whole experience.
Oh, I got to watch someone paint and pot, and I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
I was like, why did I not know this is right across from my house, across the railroad tracks from my house?
That is too funny.
Yeah, but that's the thing I like too, is that this is such a discovery town. Like you can discover things you never knew.
Yes, it is.
But everyone is just so nice.
So talk to us a little bit about your work since you've been here. You're still working with brands. You're still designing. What are your current projects? What do those look like?
So I'm lucky enough to be doing photography with Johnny Davis Studio right now.
I was going to ask about that too.
Yeah, for Eastern Accents, for the bedding. The company that I work for is Eastern Accents right now.
Okay.
And I used to design bedding for them with Barclay Butera, and they hired me when I was leaving California to help them in Chicago and to help them here with their showrooms. So right now I'm working on envisioning a 150,000 square foot old furniture factory into a multi-use space. As you might know, that space.
That is an incredible undertaking. And every single day we go over it. So that's where our studio, so anyone who doesn't know, our production studio is actually in that same building. And it feels like every day they are making huge strides forward. And that is a monumental task. That is a massive building?
The owner of the company is a visionary, and he buys these properties, and he's like, Ray, help me decide what to do with this, or he'll say, this is what I want to do with it. And it's kind of it's like the hugest blessing, because it's just a creative outlet for me,
Yes.
and it's not one home, it's all these multiple use spaces. And because my brain is just like constantly like a machine pumping out like thoughts and designs, and it's nice to know that someone appreciates that.
Yes.
And I love taking something like the house that I live in. When I moved in, looked like it was a trap house for drug users, and on the outside, and it was scary.
In High Point?
In High Point, and on a street that is all historical homes. And the reason why but when I got a hold of it, is it takes a while to go through I call it the Hysterical Society. It's a historical society, but they really want to take and make sure that these homes really have an authentic look. So it took about a year for us to get it passed through the Historical Society, but it's been a really labor of love, and I love living on Oak Street, and I love my neighbors there. And it just goes to show, it's just a little cottage, but it's really fun. People actually stop by now and say, wow, this is such a cute cottage. Or do you own this house? Or do you live here? And I'm like, I get to live here and I love it.
That's amazing.
And they're like, I didn't even know what architecture it was, because it was covered by all these trees, and so it's super fun. And I'm really blessed to have a creative outlet like that.
That's incredible. So that kind of leads again very naturally. So you've laid roots down here now. You're part of the High Point scene. You're learning the High Point, and you work with a company that we've been working with for a few years. So then we were introduced to you. So can you talk a little bit about working with Johnny and working with the team over in the studio? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis, or from like the 10,000 foot view versus sweating it out over there on a Tuesday morning?
Well, what's so nice about it is that all of our product that we use is literally steps away.
Yes.
So it's easy to get it to the space. But I met Johnny doing, he was photographing a party at Pandora's Manor, which I also work at here in town. And I think it was before the studio opened, but maybe it wasn't.
It probably was. It was probably right before.
I can't remember the timeline, but it was such a wonderful, sweet gentleman. And then he was moved into the studio, and then I was always like, what's going on in there? And then our owner was like, hey, I'm going to have them photograph some bedding and some beds. And so go talk to him. And so we just conjured up this little plan to get this done. And what I like about High Point too is that it doesn't seem like, until market, of course, it doesn't seem like everyone's in a huge rush.
Correct.
So I think that the pace is nice.
It is.
And I really enjoy that. And I really just, and the amazing photography that comes out of that studio.
We are always
incredible.
So happy. And we're so happy when people try to, well, like you were talking about earlier, nothing grows in like a controlled environment as well as adding a little bit of chaos. It's getting folks like you to say, well, what if we did it like this? Well, this is how I see this wall. This is how I see this set. How does it compare to some of the productions that you've done out in California? Like, is it a little more relaxed,
It's more relaxed. The pace is different. People just are generally more Southern and kind here. And I like that. But the product is also amazing. What you get, the production value of it is amazing. And you ultimately feel like you're part of a family and not just a number, and that you're not just doing it for someone else's, financial gain. Obviously we all need to make money, but I just enjoy the family aspect of it. Johnny's actually said, can you come over to our house? We want to redo our house, and my wife is sick of our house. Can you help out? I'm like, of course, so those things just seem to work divinely, and in a way that is unplanned, but in a nice, working environment.
So if we talk a little bit about, because you've touched on it before and we've touched on it here on the podcast, but High Point is laid back, it's relaxed, it's quintessentially Southern, the hospitality's there, the ideas are flowing in and out from not just our little neck of the woods, but, internationally, we are an international center for furniture design.
Right.
And you've been coming to market for 30 years. So talk to us about the difference. I live off of the energy that is built up right before market, and it carries me all the way through market with sometimes little to no sleep.
Right.
talk to us about the difference that you see in High Point as we do approach what's going to end up being fall market. You know, when we're recording this, it's so peaceful, it's so lazy now. How does that change?
It's funny because, you start noticing more cars on the street, restaurants more full, grocery stores are bustling. But I like the fever pitch that it brings. Creative people we want a stage, we want someone to see what's going on. And there's so many creatives here, but also, you just don't, it's like a surprise. I'm going to North Carolina for an international home furnishings market. What does that look like? Well, that looks like hundreds of thousands, millions of square feet of gorgeous product.
Absolutely.
Well made, with people who care about the end user. I'm always just blown away by how showrooms change so much.
From
which
one
I
market
love,
to the next.
and I love. It's like a theater for me.
Yes.
I think it's the theater for all of us, right?
I think it is. Yeah. I agree. No, I agree 100%. And I personally, I love that energy. We shoot out at the Las Vegas market, and their entire market is contained to 3 buildings.
Right.
And people don't really understand, even people who live, in the triad, if they haven't come to High Point during market, they don't understand that it is an entire city devoted to the international furniture trade, and that is wall colors, coverings, textiles. It plays into the High Point fashion, show that is held here. There's all walks of creators and creatives that, either temporarily or seasonally or just market by market will call this sort of their extended home. And I think it's because they are able to come in from wherever they're coming from. And they're able to find this small community and environment.
I was gonna say
Yes,
community, yeah.
Community, I think community does fit, because we look forward to seeing some of the folks that we see 2 times a year. And we look forward to, we'll text and email throughout the entire calendar year, waiting for that opportunity to say hi in person. And then we may not see them again until the next market. But
it's been someone has also oftentimes likened it to the Academy Awards of the furniture industry.
I like that.
Yeah. I think that's what we have.
Yeah.
If I may say, I think it's true.
I love that. I haven't heard that, but I'm definitely going to co-sign and steal that 100%. The Academy Awards of Furniture.
Yes.
I mean, it is, and it is incredible. It's incredible when you've been in this industry long enough to start seeing some of the notable movies, Hollywood movies that are using Phillips Collection seatbelt chairs, or a tabletop accessory that's in an attorney's office, that won a Pinnacle Award. Is that why Hollywood's using it? That's a very notable, piece of furniture in our world.
Right.
So it is nice to see it kind of bleed out into the far-reaching world. To shift a little bit from the conversation of market, but kind of staying within our industry and within your the aspirational, the inspirational part of what we're looking at, you had a very clear direction from your childhood on. You knew what you were going to do. What advice do you give to the person who is working in their room right now, whether they're in high school or college, or they're a hobbyist, that they think, maybe they've been tasked by some of their friends or neighbors and said, I love what you did to your house. Do you mind coming over to my house? What's their next step look like for them?
Well, I always tell people just say yes, because the experience is the best. Photograph all your work. Obviously you need to get permission from the homeowner, but have that document. Have that. You need that media,
right,
and film things. And luckily we're in the age of when everyone films everything. So we're lucky to have at Barclay B. Terra we had a huge breadth of our work, and I was really into social media when I was living before I left California. It was a full-time job. I was like, I don't think I have time to do interior design because I'm doing so much social media, and but I mean, to this day, people stop me, and I used to do this thing called Trash Day because I was during quarantine, and my social media person said, I need content. I'm like, taking out my trash and walking my dog. She's like, send it to me and I'll make something out of it. People come up to me at airports and they're like, you need to bring back Trash Day. I'm like, if Trash Day paid my bills, I would do Trash Day, but it doesn't. But it was fun. And it was just a way to, my social media during quarantine was all about fun and getting our mind off of what was going on in the world,
Yes.
and that's all I cared about.
Yes.
And I was busier during quarantine than I was ever in my life. I mean, because people don't live in California. They're like, go to my house, check out my house, change whatever you want, bill me for
Right.
it. So I was always busy, and I could do it because no one was at their house, so I didn't have to worry about, quarantine and the whole thing. So.
And I think that, there's some similarities to the environment that we live in now to that, where one, social media is not going away. We end up doing full-time jobs, trying to capture the voice behind, the who behind the do is the way I put it, and that's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
We've spoken to interior designers before, and I think looking at someone's project is almost like looking into a very well curated museum exhibit that you get to live in. But is it hard to convince the people to live in their space when they're done?
Not really. I
No?
mean, I try to design everything to be totally livable. I want to be beautiful, but I want to be livable. And I don't expect everyone to live like I live. Like my mom, when I lived with my mother, when I first came home for a moment, she's like, Ray, we're not waiting for Architectural Digest to show up and film your photograph our house. I'm like, well, clearly you're not. But she's like, we just don't live that way. My house looks like someone's expected to come over at any moment for a dinner party. And, it's almost ridiculous, but that's how I just see the world. Like I'm ready for a photo shoot, I'm ready for a film, I'm ready for social media, So
I think that's great, but you do encourage people, like, and I like your statement of the temperament or temperance, that this is not a permanent, addition to your house. The colors can change. You're encouraging them to interact with their environment with the idea that they will continue to evolve. Do you get return work from that? Like, do you have people that say, you did our home 5 years ago and it looked amazing, but now we've got grandchildren, or, we're downsizing, or we're buying a vacation home. We wanted you to put that special Langhammer touch on that too.
Yeah, I'm blessed to have clients who have had me do several homes for them.
Okay.
It's funny because they'll call me from a vacation home, like their ski house in Mammoth or their Hawaii house, and they'll be like, we just want you to know how much we love our house.
That's amazing.
And I think that that's the biggest gift in the whole world. I might start crying because, I mean, that really is what you want from your client, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And
for sure.
and I put a little bit of me in that, because I'm like, how would I live here? And how this person, and just a really quick side note, when I was living in California, the last house I lived in, I had 3 roommates because I had a 6-bedroom house. And at night when they go to bed, they say, we can't wait to see what the house looks like in the morning. Because while they were asleep, I would change the rugs, the pillows, the china, the drapes, everything. And they'd wake up and they'd be like, oh, I love this look. And I'd be like, did I keep you up all night? They're like, no, I didn't hear you. So which is crazy.
So like the shoemaker elf of interior design.
I would say I'm elf. You're going to go to sleep and I'm going to cut 800, snowflakes and hang them. Christmas is I'm a Christmas baby, so like I'm insane at Christmas time. Like,
really,
no surface goes untouched. So be careful if you hire me to help you with Christmas.
We'll have to stop by Oak Street and see what you do at the cottage this Christmas.
Pandora's a really great place to go for Christmas too. We really do a nice job there.
Pandora's fantastic.
People come by and have pictures taken there and stuff with our trees and stuff.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So what are your next couple projects? Because I did want to promote Pandora's and the work you've done over there, and I do want to give links on the episode to not just Pandora's, but to your social media, to the projects that you have coming out. What are you excited about? Midsummer, end of 2025.
So I've been working on a house in Chicago for my boss's son, and with Louise, who's the creative director of Eastern Accents, and she was just over there today shooting some draperies for their catalog, and she's like, we did a really good job on this house. I'm like, yes, we did. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to getting some momentum on the project where the studio is Johnny's studio.
That's incredible.
So getting some permits and getting some real things going there. We're opening an outlet store there. I've been working on that too.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I have a lot going on, in that respect. My life's a little different now. Like I'm going to be 57 this year, and I'm like, I like a little slower pace, but
absolutely.
Yeah. I have some energy, but every once in a while I'm like,
you have a lot of energy,
yeah.
Absolutely. Like, and there is definitely like an exuberance, but there's a passion behind everything that you're doing, even talking to you about it. Yeah. It's exciting. And I think that our viewers, I think that the people that are tuning into this episode, I want them to see your world. Where can they find where you are? Where your different projects are. Like, is Instagram probably the best place to follow you on the day in, day out?
Great. Yeah, probably.
And what is that handle? We'll put it up at the end of our episode.
Okay, it's Ray Langhammer Designs.
Ray Langhammer Designs. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So as we're kind of rounding out the episode, is there anything else you did want to talk about or mention, or anything that, maybe I forgot to, mention within the interview? If it's something that goes more organically earlier, we can always just seam it in.
I can't think of anything really major. I think you covered everything really well, except that the shirt is from Target.
Well, I love the shirt. I figured that the shirt, we would just put like a shoppable link in the episode.
Right, yeah.
So people can just click on it. It goes to...
I almost wore my SpongeBob SquarePants shirt from Target today. But
Me
I thought,
too. I'm glad we didn't.
I'm so glad you didn't wear it. No, like I said, I think that you might have noticed my wardrobe has changed quite a bit.
It has changed drastically.
Moving away from California, and I'm just a little bit more casual nowadays. And
tapping into the North Carolina lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, of course, during market, you're going to see me a little bit more,
of course,
classed up. But, for these hot days in North Carolina and the work I do, this is just perfect. So
that's great. Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining us today. I was excited for this. Johnny mentioned it kind of last minute. You were able to work into our schedule. It was kind of a last minute request, but you were, so accommodating, so gracious with your time. And I feel like this is a very good conversation, in the fact that it's organic, in the fact that I feel like I could talk to you for another 2 or 3 hours and the listeners and the viewers would just be more and more and more motivated and inspired by, not just what you have done, but the way you see the world. So thank you very much for bringing some of that to us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Perfect.